Thank you all for coming first off. If you don't know who I am already, my name is Kassidy Grosserode. I'm a fourth year student here at Concordia. I'll be returning in the fall for a fifth year to finish out my education degree. Other than that, I am getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in studio art. And the work that you see in the space that is mine, I've been working on for the past 2 to 2.5 years. And so that's what I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about. So over the last 4 years, I found how important research is in my practice. And the biggest thing in the research, or one of the biggest things, is history and literature. One work in particular is called Women's Work, the First 20,000 Years, and it's a book that I found as a source for some research I was doing on weaving, just learning more about the process and its history. And I really took away a lot more than just that. The author talks about just histories of women and other stories, Greek myths, just a lot more about other processes too besides just weaving. And with that, I got the quote that I have in my statement from Gottfried Keller that I'll state at this time. White linen is the paper of housewives, which must be on hand at great well-ordered layers, and therein they write their philosophy of life, their woes and their joys. And with that, I just think that it's, she talked a lot about the importance of these mediums and the importance of these more domestic processes to women and the startings of civilizations and societies. Another big impact from that book was when she was talking about the story of Penelope. And Penelope comes from the story of, or actually a book called The Odyssey. And in that book, you go on a journey with King Odysseus, who has gone away at war, and his wife Penelope is, she's left at home, and the rest of the kingdom believes that Odysseus is not going to return, and he is dead. And so Penelope is then told to find another person to marry, and suitors come and approach her, and in order to stay faithful to her husband, who she thinks will actually come back eventually, she starts weaving this tapestry, and in order to keep the suitors away. And by day, she's seen weaving this tapestry, but by night, she's actually unraveling it. And she continues that process for 3 years until they finally catch her in the act of unraveling it. And so this, that whole idea of building something up but taking it away and this wasting time almost was of major importance for the making of the video performance on the wall over there called Give and Take. That was also, or I was also influenced by interactions in my own life of just relationships that I didn't think were reciprocated, and just me giving and the other taking and not really receiving at all. Another literary work that's a major influence in a couple of the works in this space is called Pens, Needles, and Linens. And the quote from that article that resonated with me the most is this: often throughout history, women were and are like a threaded needle, working through cloth, weaving their words to friends and family, whether written on paper or embroidered, or just merely spoken to neighbors and others. With that, I think there's something important about the handing down of traditions, and that work, the idea of the threaded needle, or women as the threaded needle, influenced the two-dimensional works called Threaded Needle and the quilted piece in the other space called In the Fold. Another important part in research is looking at other artists. Two major artists that have influenced my work are Janine Antony and Mary Reed Kelly. Janine talks a lot about her relationships as a daughter and mother and synthesizing that relationship. And she also uses her body in different ways throughout her own experience of life and performances. And I think that's really inspiring. That's really, like a lot of my performance work has been influenced by her. And Mary Reed Kelly, she talks a lot about the unwritten or the forgotten histories of women. And her work, This Is Awful, is one of the works that I looked into extensively. And that talks a little bit more about the internal and external through the body and the body versus the soul and the organs, which is it's a video performance that she did. Other artists that have influenced me through their sculpture is Hannah Wilkie and Louise Bourgeois. Another major influence in my research is obviously my own life, my own thoughts, feelings, interactions with others. And most often it comes through, or it's about topics that are left untalked about or not talked about enough. And that's kind of where the Pillow Talk series kind of was rooted in that idea. As well as really focusing on this internal and external relationship, or the difference between the internal and the external. With that process has been, the process of making some of these is super important for that relationship as well. To make the pillowcase, you have to first sew the inside, and then you have to flip it in on itself to make it to what it looks like now, or to finish it. And so I think there's something interesting about how that's connected to what every human has to go through, in the sense that we start on the inside, or start from being inside the womb and then transport outside of the body. And become our own human beings. I also connect that to research I've done on relics and those vessels that then the relic sits in, and the relationship between the reliquary or the mother and the life within her, or the relic that's within the reliquary. Other reflections on the body and experiences has been focused on this idea of being surrounded, like cradled or held, and I think that that is more, that idea is more focused on interconnection, which is the tube in the other room, and if you guys don't mind, I'd like to transition into that room as we close this up. All right, and with interconnection, this is kind of rested in research, or earlier research, I should say, based on restrictions and specifically the straitjacket. And what I found interesting is the idea of restricting oneself or calming somebody by putting them in a straitjacket where they're literally hugging themselves. And so this idea of hugging or cradling resonated with me. And that's where this kind of came out of, was this idea of a place to crawl into, similar to pocket to enter and exit. I think of the tube or interconnection as a whole as a space to get into, a space to enter, and an experience to have where you feel the bag, the tube surrounding you and weighing on you, which I think is really interesting. And then to close up, I just want to say a few thank yous. Thank you first and foremost to my advisors, Professor Aaron Nix and Professor Jim Bockelman. Thank you for all of the support and direction you've given me over the past 4 years. Thank you to my family for your love and support. Thank you to Shane for your support and your help installing this whole exhibition. Thank you to my friends Jordan and Ginny for all of your help with performances, being subjects in photographs, collaborating, giving feedback. I'd like to also do a special round of applause for Jordan right now. But yes, thank you all for coming, and let me know if you have any questions.